Hello and good whatever. Pick up your best option depending on when and where are you looking at this presentation. My name is Miguel Romà from the University of Alicante, a mid-sized town in the southeast coast of Spain. And first thing I need to say is that this was supposed to be a face-to-face hands-on session, but finally due to the health issues that we have had, so I have been allowed to change it to a full paper, let's say standard presentation. The main idea is to share with you the way I am introducing the topic of ethics in engineering. So making debates with students, this is the involving students part of the work, and gathering information about if the institution is giving support to this topic or not. This is the second assessing institution part. In the proceedings you will find a full comprehensive description. So here I'm just gonna go through the most important aspects just to have an idea about how it works. The presentation is going to start with a brief introduction to the problem, the goals that this project has, a short activity description, the main results that we have, and the final conclusion. So I think that we will all agree that making students go into think about the social implications or their future decisions as engineers, and how your ethical background is behind the decisions that you make is something important and something that must be taken into account in the learning process of these future engineers. In fact, as we will see, they like to discuss about these topics. This is something appealing for them, but life is hard. You will find the problem that the science and technology contents will demand of the use of the whole class time that you have. So this is something that for sure will happen to you, I guess. So the solution that I have found is based on personal initiative. Because if you think that this topic is important, you need to find time to put it inside your class time. So in my case, together with two other colleagues, we thought that if you have 1.5 hours or even less, up to 3 hours of class time, you can use this time to put these side activities. And as you can see here in the blue sentence, sometimes it's just an example. You have in your schedule lab sessions and your students still don't have the concepts that they need to properly go through this session, and you can use this session to fit another type of activity or any other similar situation. So for sure you can find, if you want, you can find these small gaps inside your semester to shelter these types of activity. If you are happy and have more than one gap, you can even prepare different types of activities. For instance, with these two colleagues I have mentioned, we have another activity about technology and sustainability that was presented in the edition of this conference that was held in Portugal in 2016, I think. So you can search for it if you like. So with these ideas in mind, this got the form of a small project with some funds from my institution. So the goals of these projects are mainly three. Firstly, the activity itself, the design and implementation of activities in which, or with which you can work this topic of ethics and social implication of the engineering work, with one idea that it has to be easily adapted to other courses or to other disciplines. So let's make it easy to expand this idea, to gather information about the students' opinion about this topic, if they think that this is something important, if this is something that must be included in their curriculum or not, and to evaluate if the institutions, if the universities are giving support to this need. So we had some information from a pilot test that we made in 2011 with a very similar activity. So we will use it from starting point to see if something has changed or not. The activity, the main idea is to start from a particular case in which you are able to define as clearly as possible to confronted positions. So let's say the black and white positions. For instance, the role of technology in healthcare and how the technology waste is managed is just a starting point. So you will assign roles to the students, and then they will start a debate on different particular cases. The closest is the case to their topics of interest, the more interesting will be the debate. So just to have some examples of different cases I have been using. One of them is the relationship between the production, the real production costs and the final product price, or the employment generation and the labor conditions when your company decides to deallocate the production facilities, or if you will or not accept funds for your research lab, if these funds comes from arms industry, for instance, or the relationship between the effects or the impact of technology in the automotive industry. So giving a reduction of costs, so that leads increasing number of vehicles and the positive or negative implication that this may have in the environment or so. So there are different examples. The idea is that the number of different cases that you will need depend on the size of your group and the way in which you manage working groups. After briefly presenting the cases and the starting positions of each different case, then each one of the students will be assigned a case and a role. So everyone, each students will have one role of one of these different cases. The first step is a short individual work, so to go a bit deep in the case and to fix your own particular position in this case. Then all the students with the same role of the same case will join teams to prepare arguments. So they will have to defend this position in the debate stage. Then the groups of the different positions of the same case will join in bigger groups to start the debate. That's the funny stage. It's very, very interesting. The role as facilitator is just to move from one group to another, to add more elements to the debate if needed, or just as mere spectator if the debate is vivid enough. It's very interesting to see how their position is evolving as the debate moves forward. And then, depending on the gap of time that you have, you need to leave room for the conclusion of the activity. So you will want to gather conclusion from the different debate groups and to put together some final thoughts. And then I will ask the students some questions that will be asked outside of the class, so it won't take you class time. Again, you have the complete list of questions in the paper, and the results I'm going to comment comes from these questions. One of the things that I am asking them is to provide me different cases in which they think that technology and ethics are related, and so the ethics has a relevant role in this particular case. So this presents two different benefits. On the one side, you can have a picture about the students' interests, and on the other side, you can use these topics as causes for the next edition of the activity. So just to see some examples of the proposals I have got this year, the effect of robots in employment, how artificial intelligence is involved in the decision-making process of autonomous vehicles, of course, genetic engineering, and something interesting because this comes from a group of male students that is considerations of inequity in labor relationships due to gender, for instance, or things like that. On the other part, I asked the students to prepare a list of the relevant topics related with ethics that they think that will have to be included in their curriculum, in their engineering degrees, and classify them depending on its relevance in this 0 to 3 steps scale. And as when you do this activity with last year students, you have a full picture of what's going on in the degree to evaluate if these topics that are relevant from their point of view are or not included in the degree. So there is a scale from 0, that means that there's something that has not been treated at all in the whole degree, and the top value is 3, that means that has been treated in sufficiently. So to make an analysis of the results, what I have done is to put all these topics into different categories. So from the pilot study, I managed to put all the topics in 6 different categories, with a 7th one that was for the topics I wasn't able to put in the other 6 categories. So these are the results that we have from this 2011 data. So as we can see from in the solid line, that is the relevance obviously is in the higher part of the graph, because the topics has been selected by the students themselves, so it's something that is relevant for them. And the inclusion is between 0 and 1, so we are in the merely treated this aspect in the whole degree. If we compare this with the numbers that we have from the activity that I have made with one group this year, in the relevant index, the differences comes from the reason that I have used the same categories, so to being able to make a direct comparison with the other results that we have. So I have different topics. I have a different set of categories that fits better for the topics that I have for this year, but using the same categories of the previous case. This is the numbers that you have, but still it's so the differences are not relevant. The bad news comes from the inclusion index, is that we are still in the same very, very low level of inclusion. So to conclude, we have the proposal of the activity in which you can work these topics. You just need, I insist, between 1 and 3 hours of effective class time. So something that you can afford, I think, and you can adapt the activity easily to your course. From the student's point of view, this is something very interesting, and it's very cool to see how this type of activity expands their points of view, or their starting points of view. And the sad part is that this interest is not supported by institutions, at least in my case, okay, at least in the university and the degree I am working with. So that's all. Don't hesitate in contact me if you have comments or doubts or whatever. If you think it's interesting for you and you decide to adapt it, please let me know. And that's all. Thank you very much for your attention.